It is every police leader's responsibility to not only continually develop their own skills and abilities, but to prepare the next generation of leaders. Retired Captain William Frost helps you meet this task by providing a clear blueprint to follow in his book, Leadership in Law Enforcement. To learn more about his book and other consulting and training he provides, go to www.code33consulting.com. That's code33consulting.com. This episode is sponsored by Hero Schedule. If your department needs better scheduling software that isn't outdated, clunky, and expensive, Hero Schedule is an easy switch. It's $4 per user per month, and they give you a free 30-day trial. Get started at heroschedule.com and click on Try Hero Schedule. Welcome to Blue Grit Radio, the podcast that explores making better cops for a better community. I'm your host, Eric Tung. I've been an active police officer since 2007. We will dive into the aspects of police culture, health and wellness, leadership, and mindset. You'll hear from experts not only from policing, but all industries as they relate to being our best with purpose, passion, and positivity. Join me as we share stories, lessons, and advice so we can all be better for ourselves, our teams, our families, and our communities. All right, in this episode, we're going to get down and dirty with 5 major reasons people fail their police applicant process. So their entry-level process, their hiring process, and this is more inclusive than just police. You could say this is law enforcement, criminal justice. It could even go into other walks of public safety testing, especially if there's some component of civil service, especially if there's some component of governmental liability and public trust and all these things. So a lot of times this will affect a lot of those types of jobs beyond just police/law enforcement. But without further, 5 main reasons, and we're going to do a little crash course so you get that information down and dirty, as it were. All right, so number 1, background issues. Okay, so we all know if we've been through it or we have the process coming up, we know that's a daunting process. We know that's going to be intimidating. It's one of the things that sticks out most for anyone that's worked backgrounds, anyone that's been a recruiter. But then also on the flip, if anyone remembers back to when they did come in this process, they're like, holy cow, I have to disclose like every little deepest, darkest secret. Well, if they ask you about it, yes. So everything where you did partake in some sort of criminal activity, some sort of illicit drugs, but then also they are going to ask you about very specific things pertaining to your work history and all these other factors, right? So do they need to know every deepest, darkest secret? Maybe, maybe not, right? So there's a lot of things that are certainly like personally embarrassing that's affected me, but it didn't have anything to do with any of the questions I was asked, right? Could just be some personal things. However, if it did intersect with any question, like something that was illegal or something was out of policy at my workplace, if there was some sort of a dispute in my residence, that I was directly involved in, then yeah, I got to talk about it. I got to disclose it, right? So breaking that down, the main things in background are criminal, but also financial and credit stuff. And that is a super common question that I get a lot and that most people get a lot that are in backgrounds or in recruiting is my bad credit going to affect me? Is the fact that I filed for bankruptcy going to affect me? And if you've listened to other episodes about hiring or applying, or if you've gotten my guide, you will know that like most questions, the answer is it depends. And that may be dissatisfying when you hear that, but really you should flip it and say that should be a good answer to hear, right? Because it means that they're not treating everyone the same just because it's black and white on paper. Everyone's context and situation is different. If you filed for bankruptcy because the market crashed and you were a business owner and you were very responsible with your finances otherwise, and this was like 5-10 years ago, it's going to be very different than I, have this much credit card debt, so I filed bankruptcy and I have this car payment that I can't afford and I have this payment I can't afford and all this stuff. And I've made no real effort to curb my spending or my financial responsibilities, right? So you can hopefully hear that those are 2 very different scenarios with regard to finances, credit, and filing bankruptcy, right? So another piece I want to hit on is driving record. And so there's like the written record, but there's also times you've been stopped. And generally you'll be asked for both because there may be a lot of times you were pulled over or stopped that had nothing that went on record per se. But you got to disclose it if they ask you about it. And I believe every packet I've ever seen on both sides of the table, do ask you about times you've been pulled over or detained or interacted with a police officer in some sort of enforcement action. So just say it, right? And if you don't know specifically, give a ballpark. Do your best. Do your best to provide the details you're asked about. And this will go into the next prong, right? So it absolutely matters that you're doing all this background work on the hiring side, because you got to know who you're hiring, right? We're giving people a lot of trust. We're giving them a lot of power and responsibility, and we all know how that has played out negatively for law enforcement and the public when it's not a fit hire. And you can't catch them all, but we all know what that can look like, what that has looked like, and so we got to curb that as much as possible. So we know why it matters. We got to make sure that applicants and the people we hire are exercising good decision making. And so, although past behavior is not necessarily a causal to future behavior, it should be considered, right? I've heard many times, maybe you've heard many times, past behavior can predict future behavior. And we're not talking about like precog stuff like Minority Report, because that would not be fair, because people can absolutely change and people do absolutely change their behavior, but there's got to be something to show for it, right? I've talked to applicants either in the hiring process or coaching them that have said, I just want to be given a chance. I've learned my lesson. I've changed my ways. But whatever the thing is, when we talk through it or it's on paper, it doesn't appear so, right? So an example being, you have been pulled over a ton and you've racked up a lot of tickets through the years. And you say you learned your lesson, you say you're responsible now, and you say you're mature. But if we talk about it, you actually got pulled over like a month ago for exactly the same thing, right? Speeding, something like that. So that is where you got to make sure that your actions are demonstrating what you are about. And it's never too late, right? So start doing that. Whether you get hired for the job you're looking for or not, it's going to help you up level as a professional candidate and or just a human being, right? Just taking ownership, learning from mistakes, so you actually apply them, not just learning and falling on your sword and having nothing to show for it, right? Number two is, like I said, it's in tandem with this, but it's dishonesty or omissions. So we know you lie, you die. You cannot lie in a hiring process and then be hired to represent this job, because your word has to mean something, right? You have to go to court. You have to testify. Your word should mean more than the common person that has not taken all these oaths and has not been given the responsibility that you hopefully will be given. So we know that's important. I don't need to belabor that. Integrity is absolutely a cornerstone of what we're talking about. So that is where you do need to provide everything that you're asked about. No skirting around it. No kind of applying some creative writing to be deceptive. Also, omissions. So the failure to provide information is the same. It's the same as lying about it. So if you're like, well, I didn't want to talk about that because I thought that would be something where you'd pump the brakes, and I was really worried that would tank my chances. Okay, it may or may not have, and now you've really tanked your chances like indefinitely. If you lie, if you omit, you're done, right? You're basically done in this type of job pursuit. Number three, we'll call this like just lack of preparation, poor performance and showing up. So what does that mean? I mean, you're not ready. Like you haven't done your more basic homework, and your more basic homework would be looking at what the job is and really perceiving what the job is. Like not just so like, yeah, I think it'd be cool to be a cop. I've seen cops, and dated myself now, right? So for the older generation, we know cops. Younger generation, live PD, police 24/7, things and shows like that. But have you actually conceptualized what that means for your life? Are you living in this way that would demonstrate that? Like, are you taking your fitness seriously? Are you walking the walk, right? Are you staying away from trouble, like we talked about in the prior sections? Are you making good, informed decisions? Are you exercising judgment and demonstrating that? Are you demonstrating that you're like a trusting person in your circles, in your workplace, in your friend group, in your community? Like, do you stand up for what's right in general? But that also goes into the brass tacks of like, did you actually research anything about this city that you're about to sit down with and meet with some of the bosses and meet with some of the, civilian side and maybe a community member, maybe an officer or a detective? did you actually take the time to learn about their department? Or did you shotgun it? Did you not sleep well? You're out late last night and you're just kind of winging it. That matters. Are you practicing your interview skills? And we got several episodes that talk about that specifically. Also, dive way into that in the hiring guide. So, a lot of people say they get nervous. Nervous is okay, but are you prepared? Have you practiced? Have you handled the things that you can control? Because I've sat on many interview boards for my department as an officer, for my department as a hiring manager, for other departments in promotions, right? Even other departments in selection processes, because sometimes we do that to create, this external view to remove some aspect of bias. I've sat on so many boards, and someone being nervous has not been an issue. Okay, let me say that again. Someone being nervous has not been an issue. A lot of times, you can recognize that the nerves can be kind of relabeled as like excitement, like you really care. Uh, there is a difference between being so nervous you're not thinking clearly, you're not able to even articulate yourself, and then we would talk about how that's something else, right? That goes back into a lack of preparedness, because you can practice, you can do reps in your car, you can practice with your loved ones or friends or your buddy, you can record yourself and then watch it back and recognize how you're stumbling over yourself and how you can up level your performance by just trying more times, scripting out some of the gimme questions, like tell me about yourself. Why do you want to be a cop? Why do you want to be a cop here? Those are all things that you should draft out on paper in some form and then review back so you know what you're all about. And like I said, we go into that in extreme detail in the hiring guide, but those are all things you can absolutely manage and you should manage, because those are the gimmies. Number 4, failure in a test, like overtly, right? So that could be the physical test, like you knew what you had to do and you failed. Like you knew you had to do X number of push-ups and you didn't do it. Super common. You go to a testing site or a testing event, it's sad because it's very like published, and like it's no surprise. It's not like a pop quiz. You showed up for the day and you read the thing, hopefully, what you had to do and the time constraints and all the logistics. So did you fail that thing? But then the other things are trickier because they might be like the psych eval. And I have an episode with Dr. Jenna Cassis, and so we do talk about the psych. I have an episode with retired officer Heavener, Donovan Heavener. We do have an episode about backgrounds, right? How to show up. So scroll back, look for those. But essentially, those things, there are a lot of things you can do to make sure you show up the best way, which is be professional, be on time, be honest, right? Don't make excuses. But beyond that, yeah, there may be things in your background or your profiling that bar you, that might be categorically a fail. But let's not fail for the reasons you can't, right? Let's not fail because you're out of shape. Let's fail a medical because you have some rare condition that the doctor found out, and maybe you can get that corrected or rectified. Like, let's do it because it's something you didn't know about and you couldn't control at the time versus the thing you could control. So hopefully you're really getting this theme and necessity to control what you can, take ownership, take personal agency, and it's the testing process. But man, really, I would say men, women, folks out there, absolutely, that is what is going to help you have the life you want to live and the life you have earned versus just passively floating. And we don't want that. Lastly, and this does tie in with other things, we would say like lack of judgment and maybe maturity. And that goes with decision making. These things can be reflected in background, they can be reflected in social media. That every department's going to look at that kind of thing differently, but there is a difference between commenting on political stuff on your personal page versus violence provoking verbiage or imagery, stuff like that. So really there's a difference between just posting about politics. I mean, like everyone and their mom and uncle and friends do that, but there is such a line that you got to recognize if it is publicly accessible, if it's tied to your name, and it's the type of post that's and I don't mean like everyone's offended by everything these days. What I mean is that there can be a level where your average police administrator an average city official, an average community member might say, well, that seems really, really like antagonizing. That seems really violent. That seems really hateful or hate inspiring. Like, let's be recognizing of that. Right? I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because it can be extremely subjective and it can be very touchy. All right, so we did a crash course of the 5 main things as broken down by theme or concept. So background, right? Be completely thorough and recognizing of what you've done, what you've learned from it, how you've changed. Let's not be dishonest. Let's not omit. That's the second one. Number 3, perform. So practice makes perfect. That's a simple, inaccurate thing. It's perfect practice makes perfect, and perfect practice makes permanent, right? So we want to like combine all these things to make sure that we are really showing up the best. We're not just shotgunning. We are taking considerate time and attention towards the things we want to do and the things we want to achieve and excel in. And so show up the right way, right? You can cut out all these, trial by fire, just interview until you stink less and less as you go. You can practice, hit up a mentor, hit up people and get the hiring guide. Listen to old episodes that talk about this. It's not just the episodes specifically about hiring, but a lot of times different police leaders, different active law enforcement officers, SWAT team leaders, all that have been on here, and they do reflect on their career or testing. Right? Shout out to retired Sergeant Gagner, who, we're talking about his career and, officer-involved shooting and purpose and positivity in the job. But he does talk quite a bit about how to show up interview-wise, with some systems and practices that helped him a lot, and that he's, he coached a ton of us through the years on that type of stuff. Number 4, so failure in an aspect of a known test, right? So again, do what you can, show up your best way. And then number 5, judgment, maturity, making sure we are demonstrating those things, impartiality, right? Or taking our lives seriously so someone can be informed from the outside perspective. It looks likely that we will take this job and responsibility extremely seriously. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what questions you have. Coaching and providing insight, free and otherwise, is absolutely a passion of mine for those coming into the job. It's something we need more of. It's not commonly available. So please do me and the future candidates out there and the community that we want to build a safer public safety and community out there, and share this episode, share the show, share the Instagram page, all that stuff out to your friends and circles so we can do it together. And without further, thank you for your time. Stay safe and stay gritty. All right, I'm really excited to share with you the new Blue Grit Police Testing and Hiring Guide that's live on the website. Really, this is the culmination of everything I've learned about police testing from the time I came in myself and had to figure out trial by fire what it was that agencies wanted, at the same time how to showcase my best version of myself, right? It's not about being something that you're not, but it's about understanding each stage in the game so you can present the best way. In my guide, I go in everything about the hiring landscape right now, how to develop your mindset, what to expect, and how to show up. So it's about knowing yourself well, like identifying strengths, weaknesses, how to conceptualize this, how to articulate this, and then going into the test itself. So written, physical components, interviews, everything that we're looking for there, the background, what that entails, polygraph, psych eval, medical, what these things all are, what they're trying to yield or determine, and then how you can make sure that you are showing up to be effective so you're not wasting your time, stress, money, all the angst of waiting for this extremely long-term process to go through. So just show up the right way, your best way the first time. Again, you can find that at bluegritwellness.com. Go to the shop, so it's bluegritwellness.com/shop. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Blue Grit Radio. As always, support this community by subscribing, giving us a 5-star review, and following, liking, and sharing posts on Blue Grit Wellness on Instagram. You can reach me there or email me at bluegritwellness@gmail.com. Be well and stay gritty.